stepping down from glory. Bethlehem is just the start of the story. Here he comes. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes, teaching in the temple, making timeless wisdom sound simple. Here he comes. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes to seek and save, to wash our every sin away. Hear the captives start to say, here he comes. Here he comes, giving sight to a blind man, calling out, giving life to a dead man. Here he comes. Oh, here he comes.
Welcome to the all-new SGNP with your host, Daniel Britt, and Southern Gospel Music Association President and gospel music fan favorite Arthur Rice. Sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh, cry, and have a little fun. If you like what you hear today, please leave that 5-star review, subscribe to wherever you download podcasts, and listen. For back episodes of SGNP with some of your favorite people, go to www.southerngospelnewspodcast.com. What's wrong with living right anyway? Not one thing. And you're listening to SGNP.
Welcome to the Southern Gospel News Podcast. I'm Daniel Britt with Arthur Rice. And Arthur, my friend, I hope you're doing well. And, you know, I guess we could update everybody on life post-Kingdom Heirs with you right now, right?
Yeah.
And
Going good.
Now, you traveling a couple times a week over to the church, right?
Yeah. Wednesdays and Sundays, for the most part, here and there, but pretty much just Wednesday and Sunday. So yeah. I can do everything else from the house. And so all the music stuff from the house.
Right.
Works good. Yeah. Works out good. We're having a great time, man. I tell you, the church is doing great. And I'm having a blast. The choir is just spoiling me rotten. And I've just really enjoyed working with them. And they're having fun, and I'm having fun, and so we're just enjoying the Lord together.
Now, how much arranging or coaching vocally did you do with the Kingdom Heirs, if any? And is the choir, are they easier to teach than your Kingdom Heirs cohorts?
Well, the thing about the one thing about doing the quartet stuff was I could do all the parts. Yeah. And, I could do their demos. Like when we go in the studio, I would go in and record. I would do the arrangements, and then I would go and sing their parts. And then I would just send them their parts and to learn. And so that way, when they come in the studio, they pretty much knew their part. And so, I just kind of replace them one at a time. A lot of times, we didn't sing the song together until we were performing it, really. So but I can't do all the parts for the choir, so that's been a challenge a little bit, but it's good. It's all good. It's great.
Hey, and with the Southern Gospel Music Association and the Hall of Fame, do you want to give us an update on how things are going there?
Oh man, we're really excited. In fact, we opened the museum opened. Good. Folks can come to the museum and Hall of Fame, and we're excited about that. So it's turned out really good, and my wife has just worked so hard. She is the executive director, and I'm telling you, we couldn't do anything without her. She's done an incredible job of she's raised all the money. She pretty much done all the work too.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been great. It's been great.
Well, I'll be curious to find out if you have anything from our guest over there, maybe a pair of old shoes or a pair of retired cufflinks or something. And if not, maybe we can arrange something on this program.
We actually do. We have a whole outfit. And
cool. Well, our guest today is Joseph Habedank, and we're going to bring him on here in just a few moments, and maybe we'll get a little history behind that. And in the meantime, check out the Facebook page to see what's happening, past episodes, and the like at SouthernGospelNewsPodcast.com. That's where you can link up to everything related to this show. Lots of great archives of shows even before my time here. So that's at SouthernGospelNewsPodcast.com. Well, we'll look forward to talking to Joseph Habedank straight ahead.
Hey, this is Darren, and I'm here for my buddy Mike Lindell and My Pillow. That's right, My Pillow. I got to tell you a little secret, and this is a true story. The other day I'm laying in the bed. I looked at Mary and I said, I'm going to get me some new pillows today. She said, what do you need with new pillows? You got them. I said, I got one that's decent, and I didn't know which one it was. I mean, I knew which one it was, and I pulled the cover off of it, and it was only My Pillow. The rest of them were these ones that we bought from TJ Maxx or Target or Walmart or somewhere that just had worn out their welcome. And you know what, guys? I feel like I needed new pillows. And she said, well, why don't you call My Pillow, because you like the one you got there, and tell them what you're looking for, and they'll help you out. You know what? I called, and guess what? They helped me out. They asked me what size I was. They asked me how I slept. Did I sleep on my back or on my side or on my stomach? What felt right? Feathers or, blah, 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 foam. They asked me all these questions. More questions than I ever dreamed about a pillow, and I got my new My Pillow in the mail, and I've slept right. You want that change in your life? It's real simple. 1-800-338-2330. 1-800-338-2330. Use the code word SGNP. That's right, the code word SGNP. And tell them you heard about this special offer. And when you use that code, you'll get a great discount from the folks at My Pillow. I use My Pillow. You should too. 1-800-338-2330. Use the code SGNP. My Pillow, the official pillow and sleep provider of Southern Gospel News Podcast.
I've seen God's people pray by hospital bed. I've seen them struggling for their daily bread. Seen them standing at the grave of one who left us too young. And I've heard them crying out for their wayward son. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken. I've seen them with tears in their eyes, seen them with their hearts breaking. I've seen them tested and tried, seen them with their faith shaken. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken. Seen them when it seemed like there was no help in sight. Seen them when it seemed that life was nothing but night. But in the eyes of heaven, something else was going on. They may have been all by.
Hey, back here now with Joseph Habedank joining us. By the way, I'm Daniel Britt, Arthur Rice. Joseph, we were talking about you behind your back as to what is on display at the SGMA Hall of Fame. I was kidding. I thought maybe an old pair of shoes or a cufflink or two, but there's a whole outfit, I hear. Is that right, Joseph?
Yeah, you know what? I think I sent one of my favorite suits that I ever had made when I was with the Perrys. You know, when I was single, I used to spend a lot more money on clothes than I do now that I'm married. My wife has a really good, she's very frugal. When I was in my 20s, I would go buy this custom suits, and I think they've got a gray custom like shark skin looking suit that I bought. It wasn't cheap, but I bought it, and then it eventually kind of went out of style because it was a 3-button, and then the 2-button came in style, and then it was kind of the wide leg pant. and now the style is a little more slim fit in the pants. So once it went kind of out of style, I gave it to the SGMA, and so yeah, that's one of my favorite suits though, and I love the SGMA, and I want to.
It fits me great too.
I know Arthur is very humble, but I'm a little shorter than you, I think.
Yeah.
But speaking of Arthur, as humble as he is, I want to just congratulate him. I just think, when his name popped up for the Hall of Fame inductee, I just could not be more happy. Couldn't have happened to a greater human being.
That is true.
It's funny because, I love the fact that Arthur is old school, traditional, and I am new school, progressive, and yet I have the utmost respect for him and for everything that he does, and I'm such a big fan, and I love him, and I just want to congratulate you, Arthur, on the well-deserved honor.
Thank you, pal. I appreciate that. I love you. I love you, and I love what you're doing. Love how God's using you.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do. Daniel, what about you? What are you up to these days? I'm going to interview you for a moment.
Well, I was, and as a good host, I'm going to deflect and go back to what you just talked about. So I'm going to avoid the question altogether. No. Here's where I wanted to go. Old school, new school. Now, if you're talking to somebody who maybe is a surface level gospel music lover, and by that I mean they just think all quartets are made alike or whatever, go a little bit deeper on that. Where would, and obviously you guys are brothers. Obviously you guys aren't going to disagree on much musically, I don't think. But where would you walk together, old school and new school, in a quartet mind? And Joseph, so you take this. What roads would you walk together, and then where would those roads start to diverge as far as what would then separate an old school versus a new school quartet guy?
Well, when I was with the Perrys, it was a lot more traditional. And when I went solo, as so often happens, and it wasn't on purpose, but it became more of a progressive Southern gospel music, which means a little more. It's not as traditional musically or stylistically. And again, it wasn't something that I went into the studio and said, I want to be a progressive artist. That's just not how it went. I was writing these songs that lent themselves to a different kind of style. And the interesting thing to me is that I love the Kingdom Heirs and I love the Greater Vision. Yeah. I also love Jason Crabb and I also love Triumphant. And those people are very, and I think what's cool now, and there's people that disagree on this, but I think what's neat now is that you do have a traditional quartet in, say, the Kingdom Heirs, and you have a progressive quartet in, say, Triumphant, or you have a traditional soloist in Mark Bishop, and you have a progressive soloist in me or Jason or whatever. I think the interesting thing for me is that it provides variety. And ultimately, what I try to tell people all the time, people that get hung up on this, we need to be traditional or why aren't we progressing the music? Because there's arguments on both sides. What I say is this: it is all about Jesus. At the end of the day, the message is Jesus. It's not about a style. It is not about a production. It should always be about the message of Christ. And if something is distracting from that, whether it be musically or an opinion, on musical preference, then it really takes the attention off of Christ and puts it on us. And that's something I don't want to do. I want it to be about Jesus. Yeah. And that's what it should always be. So that's my 2 cents. Arthur has a lot more wisdom on this probably than I do.
Well, no, I agree exactly with what you're saying. That's the thing with a soloist can sing a song, and you made a good point with that. With Triumphant, say you take Triumphant is taken more progressive songs and added 4 parts to it. Well, that lends to make it more traditional sounding.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the song. If a soloist sings it, it sounds differently than if you put 4 parts on it, So, there's not as much of a difference in the music, I think, a lot of times as it just is in the styling of it. And so, but I totally agree with you, Joseph. That's a perfect analogy of it is if it does anything to take away from Jesus, then I don't want anything to do with it. So.
And I think one of the things I wanted to do when I started out, there was 2 things I wanted to do as a soloist. I wanted to reach addicts and alcoholics because of my story. I wanted to help not only addicts and alcoholics, but their families. But the number 2 thing that I wanted to do was reach young people, and I felt like there were so many people in Southern that told me I couldn't do it. And yet, I sing to 4,000, 5,000 teenagers every year in one setting. And then I can go to NQC and sing to, 7,000, 8,000 senior citizens. And what's interesting is, yes, the set list does change based on the audience, but the message does not change. My story does not change. I might do a more progressive song. Well, I take that back. When I'm at a youth conference, I do Here He Comes just like I do at NQC. So it's fun to be able to do both things. And I think I don't want, because there's so much division going on in the world, I don't want that to become a part of our industry. And I do think it has. And for people listening, a lot of people listening don't realize that, but there is a little bit of a division. And hey, we want to keep it traditional. And I want Greater Vision and the Kingdom Heirs and the Mark Tremble Quartet, and I want the traditional too. I also think we should be able to have the liberty to reach more people with maybe a different style of Southern gospel music. But that's, again, just my opinion. And I know there's people that differ on it. But at the end of the day, I love this music so much. I love it. I know more about it now than I did when I was a teenager, just because I've been in it for 20 years. But I love it more than I ever have, ever. And that's knowing the good, bad, and ugly. I still love it.
Sure.
And Daniel, I've talked about this before. That's one thing that I love about the umbrella of our music encompasses so many different styles. And, we can come together under this umbrella of Southern gospel music, and it still works,
Yeah. I've heard I've heard it put this way, that it's the gospel. It's about Jesus, it's about the gospel, but that message is going to come, and throughout history, it's going to come wrapped in different packages. And so when I start hearing about packages, I start thinking about maybe like candy, and I think about like chocolate, and how you got so many. You could have chocolate candy, you can have chocolate cake, you can have chocolate pudding, and then you can drill down into bittersweet chocolate and dark chocolate and semi-sweet. And you get, all these different varieties, and you got some with a few nuts thrown in there. And so, as you start thinking about that, that's how much variety you can have on the art form of presenting the gospel. So yeah, I love gospel music, and then you drill down and say, I love Southern gospel music, and then you say, well, I love the quartet style of Southern gospel, or I like the family harmony style, or I like the solo, and then from there you can start branching. I like the Joseph Habedank or the Jason Crabb edgier side of Southern gospel, so that's what I get into that. I think that's really cool that you can really fine tune, maybe just call it a preference or a delivery. Joseph, would you call yourself a bridge because you get to sing to a traditional crowd and to maybe young kids who've never really explored the full breadth and depth of gospel music?
I don't know. I don't know that I would. I think the best bridge maker in our world has been Bill Gaither, and you could argue that he really isn't Southern gospel. He would not claim not that he's ashamed of Southern gospel, but he would claim more inspirational music. But Bill can bring in a Hoppers and a Karen Peck, but he can also bring in a Michael W. Smith or he knows everybody. Sandy Patty, he knows everything. He's been such a great bridge builder, I think, for music. And I think what we often forget in Southern, we think that Southern gospel is the only genre of music that has variety, and that's just not the case. If you look at Christian contemporary music, you've got the worship side of things, but you've also got the country, Zach Williams, Ann Wilson, We the Kingdom even. It's all, there are different styles in each genre of music. Even in country music, there's the bro country, or there's the more traditional country. It happens in every genre of music. But ultimately, what I like, or what I want to keep the focus on, is Jesus rather than a style. It's about Jesus. And I always come back to that. And it's funny because you mentioned people saying I love quartet music. I'm not hearing a lot of people say I love soloists in Southern gospel. It's not a thing. There's not many soloists. Unfortunately, it's just always been that way. And if you look at the other genres of music, some of the biggest artists are solo artists. But in our world, it really hasn't been that way because it was based on harmony. And that was one of the biggest challenges for me when I started out, is that nobody's going to want to hear what I had to say because I'm a soloist. And I had the record company and the booking agency tell me it's going to be so hard if you're a soloist, you need to be. But I knew God was calling me to tell my story and do a solo ministry. And because I followed God in that regard, I feel like he has honored that, even though it was the road less traveled, and it was certainly the harder road to take. But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you did it too, buddy.
Oh yeah.
I love what you do, man. I really do.
I'm still learning.
Speaking of hard roads to travel, I can't think of anybody more real and honest and just dirt under their fingernail kind of an approach than Joseph when it comes to talking about the struggles that you've had. And if we're, and I think the difference is you've been bold enough to talk about it. Some of us aren't ready yet, and so you give us that courage to say, you know what, the ground is level at the foot of the cross if we can just get real and get honest. How has that been? Because I think there are some people who think you should never talk about negative stuff. We're tired of negativity, so let's just be positive all the time. And on the other hand, you got people who say everything is so plastic and fake, we need to get real. And I think there's a balance. I think you can be happy and joyful and at the same time be real and honest. And I think it takes a balance.
Yeah. When I tell my story, I don't talk a lot about the addiction aspect of it. That's only the first 30 seconds. Yeah. The rest of it is about, recovery, redemption, forgiveness, grace, mercy. That's how I turn it. But I remember when I first lost my job singing with the Perrys because of my addiction, Gerald Wolfe told me, he said, you're going to have to tell it. Yeah. And I remember going home. He had taken me to lunch right after, it was like a day after I lost my job. I told him that I was addicted to pain medicine, that I had to go get help. And he said, you're going to have to tell the truth. And so I went home and I remember telling Lindsay, and I watched her weep. She said, I don't want you to be the poster child for addiction.
Right.
And I got that. I understood where she was coming from. And I'll be honest, I didn't want to tell it either, but I'll never forget Phil Hoskins invited me to a Higher Ground Baptist Church in Kingsport, Tennessee in December of 2013. I'd been sober for 6 months. And he asked me to tell my story. And it was the first time I was terrified. And I told it.
Yeah.
And people started coming to the altar.
Yeah.
And I watched these young people cry out to God, and these parents praying for their children who were hooked on drugs. And I watched these grandparents. And it was like God said, that's what I want you to do. And instead, what I told somebody the other day is, I feel like I'm not the poster child for addiction, but I sure want to be the poster child for recovery. And that's okay with me. And I always felt like God could build a ministry on my singing or songwriting. Yeah. And God was like, no, I can't really build it on that, but boy, I sure can use your brokenness, and I can use your mess. And that's why we do it. And that's why I go out every week and tell my story. And I do it everywhere I go every night. It's funny because I was scared that people weren't going to book me because I was an addict.
Yeah.
And now they book me just for my testimony. Like they book me just for that. That's what they want. They don't, they like the songs, and that's fine, but they want to hear the story. They want the testimony. So it's funny how you think God can use your voice and your songwriting, and yet he's like, well, yeah, I can use that, but boy, I sure can use this broken mess a lot better than that. So it's pretty interesting how he works.
That is unique. That is unique.
Speaking of songwriting, and you just mentioned that, I wanted to find out, because I've heard many songwriters, and I've probably heard you say this, that if you have a song inside, a songwriter has to write. It's just going to come out some way or another. It's no holding back. So when that spring is flowing, that makes sense. What do you do, or have you accepted that it's okay to be a songwriter and accept that title, and also maybe go through a spell where there is no well flowing, or there is a dry season in writing? And is there a contentment there, or does that frustrate you?
I think both. I mean, what I do, I go about it differently. So I will take a year off from writing typically after I release an album. And and what I will do is if I get an idea, I'll just write it down in my phone. And then when I go to write my next album, I'll go back to that well and go, hey, I want to write this. I came up with this idea about 6 months ago. But what happens is, because when you take that year off from writing, when you go back to start writing again, there is a little rust there, and it will take some time to get back into the groove.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of trouble this year. It was easy during COVID. That was the COVID year. The 2020 was the year I was supposed to write my next record, and I was able to do that with the Changes Coming album. The whole Changes Coming album was basically written during the shutdown. But this year has been so busy touring that, this is supposed to be the year I'm writing for my record, but I only have maybe half the record written, if that. So I'm going to have to push the album up probably to 2024, to be honest, because I just haven't got the songs yet. Now there's 2 or 3 songs that I'm so passionate about, so excited about, but there is certainly a frustration with it. But I also think it's a process, and you have to really wait. Sometimes you have to wait on God. And there's some people, they like my first album. And I had a guy this week and say, I like your Welcome Home album better than the rest. Resurrection was probably my second album, was probably the most popular. And then the third album, it had the first 2 number 1 songs, and then this last album, one of those. Every album has different things that I feel like have done well. But yeah, it can be really frustrating. Yeah, I would say yes to that.
Hey, your wife is from East Tennessee, and you're from Ohio, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, she grew up in Kingsport, Tennessee. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. That's correct.
And you both live and have made your marriage in Nashville. Is that accurate?
Yes, we live just north of Nashville in Goodlettsville, and we've been married for 12 years.
So
12 years.
This is a total hypothetical question. If you were to take Lindsay and say, okay, let's move to Ohio. Let's go back to my hometown. Let's go back to my stomping grounds. How long do you think she would last, and what would she have to get used to?
It would never happen. She hates Ohio with an ever-loving passion. In fact, we were just there this weekend, and she was like, I don't know how you did it. And the reason is it's very flat. There's not a whole lot of she's used to the mountains, and it's very gloomy. There's a lot of overcast. She likes the sunshine. She doesn't like the gloominess. But so, yeah, she wouldn't last. But she would, it's funny. It would be like a mission field, I think, for her if we went to Ohio. It's quite funny. She's not a huge fan. And I'm sorry for all you Buckeyes that are listening. I love my home state, but she's just not a fan. So
she's called to Ohio.
She is. I think she is called to the hills of Tennessee and nothing else. That's the only place she wants to live. And what's funny? She doesn't even move back, because I said, what's going to happen when your parents get older? And she was like, I'm not leaving Nashville. She said, I don't want to live anywhere other. She loves Nashville. She's always wanted to live here.
Oh, that's cool.
When her parents when she was a little kid, they used to bring her here on vacation, and they said she would cry when they would leave, and they'd say, what's wrong? And she'd say, I feel like I'm leaving something. And this has always felt like home to her. I don't know why, but it's interesting. Really interesting.
That's awesome.
Arthur, where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Asheville. I'm back at my home church. And so, yeah, it's funny, I've been in Tennessee for nearly 30 years, so it's home. And I come back here, and of course, my parents have been gone for several years, so I haven't come back to Asheville that much, and I forget how beautiful it is here. And I'm sitting outside just looking at the mountains. It's beautiful, and I forget how beautiful it is here too.
Well, I guess it's only natural. No matter where you grow up, you have some fond memories, and sometimes those memories are better than the reality. And so, like anytime I take my wife back home, I say, "Oh, this was the best tasting food," or "This was the best hot dog," or "This is the best thing," and she's never quite as impressed as I think that she should be. And then, what is it about that? Is that true with Asheville for you, Arthur?
Yeah, exactly. It's their thing. But I love East Tennessee too. So it works good.
What about pals, Arthur? Do you like pals?
Oh,
I do, but we don't have one. I have to go to Marshtown to get one. So
okay.
But I do.
Pals sudden service with the double drive-through, right?
Yes. Well, you order on one side and you pick up your food on the other side.
That's right.
That's Lindsay's favorite restaurant. That's her hometown, Kingsport.
And they have these little, I'm not much on tater tots, but they have these little cheddar things in the mornings.
Yes. Oh yeah,
they're good. They're good.
Ooh, they're very good. How can you beat potatoes and cheese? You can't.
So what is it? Do you say you've got to have, Joseph, when you go back home, that your wife just rolls her eyes and says, "Okay, get your kicks"?
That's easy. Skyline chili, man.
Oh,
that's the thing up there.
It is good.
And it's funny because you either love it or you hate it. And Lindsay loves it. And I remember when I was dating her and she loved it, I said, she must be the one. That's why we got married.
Well, you either love it, you hate it, or you like the one across the street, which is the competitor, right?
Yeah, the Gold Star. I'm not a huge fan of the Gold Star because it's not as sweet. I like the sweet of the Skyline. To me, is the best.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
As we're looking into the time of this taping, fall of 2022, and starting a new year soon, believe it or not, 2023, the more these years keep going, the more it just seems so foreign that we would ever be anywhere beyond 2020. I mean, 2020 seemed like such a weird age as far, and I'm talking about the virus. I'm talking about just, it sounds like Jetsons land, And so Joseph, what's next? I mean, what are you anticipating and looking forward to in whatever this next big season that's about to drop in your lap, or do you know?
It's funny. I was telling my mom this week. I said, the older I get, I would turn 37 this year, which is not old. I get that, but the older I get, I just want wisdom in my life, and I pray. One of the number one things I pray for right now is just wisdom, because I feel like a lot of times I don't have the wisdom. Cooler heads will prevail type thing. I always pray that God will give me wisdom. And one thing I am really excited about is I'm kind of in the process of putting my story on video form. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I'm really excited about that, because one of the things I'm having people ask me for is, do you have your story on DVD or tape or CD? And I don't have it. I have songs. And so I'm kind of in the process of working on that. And so I'm hoping that'll be the next thing where I kind of want to get back. I think I'm going to do an album of songs that I grew up singing, kind of older school, and tell my story. And what I want to do is an album called, and I don't even know if this will happen, but my idea is to do an album called My Story and the Songs That Wrote It. And so that's kind of what I'm in the process of developing right now. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. And I hope that I'm looking forward to somehow getting my story on a DVD. It feels kind of weird to sell it, though, because it's such a personal thing. But the people are asking for it because they want to show their kids and their grandkids, and they want to show their spouses, or they want to show somebody that maybe could benefit from what I've been through. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to. And I've got so Lindsay and I, by this time, we have just released our first album together, and it's actually called called Together. Joseph and Lindsay, we're releasing it at the National Quartet Convention. So we're really excited about that. And we recorded just 6 songs during the shutdown that helped us kind of get through our marriage, get through my addiction and recovery from addiction. So it's a very personal album, and it's been a little scary for Lindsay. She's not sang, and she grew up singing, but she's kind of taken a back seat. And I've been pushing, please, people want to hear you sing if you want to. So she finally got her in the studio, and so look for that album. It's called Together, Joseph and Lindsay Habedank Together. And so I'm really excited about that.
That is cool. Well, congratulations. Well, you guys are a good-looking couple. You sing good. If we can just work on the pronunciation of this name for people. It's an old German name, right?
Yeah, it means have thanks, which is ironic because I am not thankful for my last name at all.
But you have embraced it, and and it's so we spell it Habedank. Is that right?
That's right. It's funny when people ask me, why didn't you get a better stage name? And I'm like, we don't really do that in Southern gospel. We don't really do stage names. We're not superstars, Some of us think we are, but we just kind of go with what we got, and I didn't pick it. It was my dad gave it to me, and his dad gave it to him, and it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. Well, you got to spell it right to get the music at josephhabedank.com, right?
That's right. JOSEPHHABEDANK.com.
Well, Joseph, it's good to catch up with you, and we'll keep listening. I love hearing your story every time and then every little iteration that comes along in the next chapter of you and Lindsay. It's always fun to catch up with you. I know for Arthur, thanks for being here with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy. Love you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you both.
Hey, this is Darren Sutherland. I miss being with you guys, but we're in good hands with Daniel Britt and Arthur Rice on SGNP.
Oh, Father, bless this boy. Bless this man of God. Use him like he could never, ever dream.
I wish you could have known her, the way she touched heaven when she prayed. I wish you could have seen the way she lived a life of faith. And I know it may seem selfish for me to feel this way, but what I'd give to see that smile just one more time, just one more day. But it's one more reason to go, one more reason it feels like home, one more reason my heart is longing for a place I've never known, one more reason to trust, one more reason to not give up. And when God calls my name, I'll know it's one more reason to go. Sometimes I look around me and think about the blessings I've been shown, and yet He's promised so much more than all I've ever known. So I live each day believing when my race on earth is run, I'll gladly trade this life I love to hear the words, my child, well done. And it's one more reason to go, one more reason it feels like home, one more reason my heart is longing for a place I've never known, one more reason to trust, one more reason to not give up. And when God calls my name, I'll know it's one more reason to go. As if mansions, crowns, and streets of gold were not enough, I will finally look into the eyes of perfect love.
Southern Gospel News Podcast, Daniel Britt, Arthur Rice. And hey, that was fun with Joseph Habedank. I always learned something new. I've known him for so long, but I always learned something new when talking to him. And if people want to see him, of course, his website that we gave out is going to give a tour schedule there. And if they don't want to see him but want to see a remnant, you can go find the full suit on display at the newly reopened SGMA Hall of Fame. That's cool.
Yes. Come on. Love to have you.
Well, Arthur, now that you're on staff with a church, I would be remiss to ask, as we head into the fall, do you already have your Christmas plans lined up for your church music?
Kind of, yeah. We're right in the middle of working on that, and it seems like you have to start that stuff forever, before Christmas. So, but I always thought that we started Christmas season in first November. At Dollywood, so we always had to start it in October learning Christmas music. But But boy, for choral, man, you got to start in August. It's like, wow.
Well, if people are doing, I hear the economy is doing what it's doing. People say they're shopping a whole lot earlier than usual, just trying to stay ahead of any kind of whatever economic crisis we're going through. So on that note, and it's early, I get it. But if someone is already thinking about what to give the gift, what gift to give the person who has everything, how about a gift in memory or in honor of someone to the SGMA nonprofit organization, right?
That's right. You can buy a brick.
I like that idea.
Put their name on it. We have a whole display with the Blackwood Brothers bus that sits outside, and if you go to sgma.org, there's some pictures online. You can go to our Facebook page and see the pictures. We have just finished a whole outdoor new paved area with the new brick and the old brick. And if you bought a brick in the past, it's there. If you bought a new brick, it's there. We're really excited about that. And so you can purchase a brick. That's be there
good.
Forever.
I love that. I love that idea, because we all have somebody who says, I don't need one more trinket. What am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
But this is leaving a legacy. And boy, I bet those bricks were fun to transplant from Hollywood over.
Yeah. That was some kind of move for sure. That was some kind of move. It took them about a week to get those new ones in and get everything set up. But we're excited about it.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Arthur. We'll do it again soon. In the big question that Darren always loves to ask on this, I love asking you here at the end, what's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you, buddy.
You have been listening to SGNP. Please leave a review, tell your friends and neighbors about our show, and leave that 5-star review. SGNP is currently ranked as one of the top gospel music podcasts globally by feedspot.com. SGNP is produced by BG Ad Group and BG Podcast Network of Marietta, Georgia. For more information or production help on your podcast, call them at 770-874-3200.